Welcome to On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, presented by Review Maxer.
Hello and welcome to On Top of PR. I'm your host, Jason Mudd with Axia Public Relations. Today, I'm joined by our special guest, Jennifer Radke from the National Institute for Social Media and Online Marketing Certified Professionals. We're here to talk about social media and how you can navigate professional growth in social media marketing. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jason. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it is. It's great to have you. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad that you've joined us to help our audience stay on top of PR. Jennifer is the CEO of two certification organizations focused on helping marketing professionals level up their skills and build confidence and credibility, the National Institute for Social Media and Online Marketing Certification Professionals. You're also an educator, author, and international speaker. So we're really excited to have you on the program today as we explore navigating professional growth in social media marketing, which I think is a very timely topic and helpful for our audience. We sense that the PR profession did a really good job of quickly grabbing on to social media as a powerful tool early on, realizing that, really sophisticated PR people are always looking for new and better ways to connect with their audience. And it's not necessarily just about, getting media coverage and publicity. It's about building relationships and connections with your audience. As a PR professional, I love any tool that can help me connect one-to-one or directly with my target audience. And, social media has become so powerful for doing that over, the last, hard to believe, almost 20 years, that we've been using social media. So, there's a lot of buzz around generative artificial intelligence, and I've been around long enough to know when the internet came out, when cell phones came out, when social media came out. So, to me, I see this as just yet another tool in a professional toolbox that, what's this cliche? With great power comes great responsibility. And that's how I feel very strongly about social media and about generative AI. So I'm glad you're here today, Jennifer. Anything else you want to share as we start the program today?
I think we're on the same track there. I too tell people all the time that it is simply a communications tool, like so many others that have come before, whether that be the telephone or email or direct mail. But social and digital allows us to do so much faster. So we have to be keeping current with those opportunities.
I totally agree. You might have more speed and more volume to reach people, but again, that's when you have to even be more careful. So I tell people all the time, the fundamental foundational skill set hasn't changed. You still have to be a great communicator. You still have to put your audience first. You have to make sure you're not ruining the tool or taking advantage of the tool for everybody else, right?
Exactly.
But it's clearly social media is an important part of the communication toolbox. So I want to get into a little bit about current industry trends and perceptions of social professionals. We've had some other guests on the show in the past, and one theme has been, the woes of the one-person social media department or a one-man band, and just how hard that is to do, but how common that exists, as well as the commonality of, my niece or nephew or, somebody much younger than me, they understand social media well, so they should do the social media for our organization, which we all know as professionals is very far from the truth. They might have potential, but that doesn't mean that, they're a professional at it. So let's talk about the current industry trends. Jennifer?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're spot on there, Jason. One of the trends that we're seeing right now is unfortunate because it hasn't changed. And it is exactly what you're talking about, where social media marketing professionals are feeling a lack of respect for the work that they do, because so many times business leaders are saying, well, my niece or nephew, my 14-year-old could do that, or it's free. Why do you need a budget? Or you don't really need any specific skills to do this, just post. And unfortunately, that's not how this works, right? Having your own personal brand is completely different than running a business brand and understanding the acumen that comes into engaging with current customers, past customers, and future customers as well. So that lack of respect is still an underlying trend. There's also still a lack of understanding. And I think these two things kind of go hand in hand, right? So that respect is something that the professionals working in this space feel, But understanding is something we have as a charge that we have to try to support and educate. So there are still so many people throughout an organization that don't really understand what it is a social media marketer does. Because like you said, that for so long, they've been one-person shows, and they've done a little bit of everything from the website to video editing to writing long-form content to engaging in a crisis. And we need to make sure that as an organization grows, that we hone in and provide resources for the teams that are doing this. Likely, the PR team should be handling some of these crises in conjunction with the social media community managers who are online engaging with people all the time, not just during a crisis. And so it really is about educating and helping everyone within the business understand what's happening here. There are a lot of other kind of interesting trends that are happening right now too that are more platform specific. So for marketers, there's always a whole bunch of things that they have to focus on and learn and keep up to date with. One that has not diminished in its importance is analytics. We are still seeing this as being a huge portion of what a social media strategist or social media marketer is responsible for doing. Not only understanding what they're measuring, but knowing how to find that data and then report adequately through to the C-suite or the leadership teams. Content management is still a big one, right? Like, what is it that we're putting out on these platforms? How do we make sure that it's reaching the audience in a way that's beneficial for them? How do we stay brand right with it and stay away from just memeing the heck out of everything so that we can get a laugh? And then last but not least is definitely coming in at keyword analysis, right? How can we, for a lack of better term, game the system? How can we use the tools to make sure we're showing up either in search engine or in different algorithms? We're coming up in the search when our customers are trying to find us. So those are some of the trends that continue to lead the way.
Yeah, that's really good. 20 years ago or more, I know the public relations profession was struggling to have, quote, a seat at the table and, really make sure that they were valued by leadership. And I think the way that, PR leaders have overcome that have been, focusing on strategy, aligning their goals and objectives with those of the organization broadly. So in other words, not being rogue and on your own and setting your own goals and objectives for PR that are offline or off target of what the leadership team is looking at, but to figure out what is important to the leadership team, say in 2025, or depending on when you listen to this in 2026 and beyond, and then making sure your corporate communications and your public relations and social media goals and objectives are in line with those same things. And so demonstrating to leadership the impact that whatever you're doing has on the overarching goals and objectives of the organization. Then the second thing I would say is then you want to focus on strategy and report back and measuring the impact that you're having towards accomplishing those kind of KPIs that are relevant. So I think, as you know, if you come to the C-suite and you talk about the number of impressions and the visibility and the click-through, the number of clicks you got, they're like, okay, well, what does that mean to actual either conversions or how did that impact the organization? And then suddenly they don't know the answer and they start fumbling, and then you're no longer trusted or necessarily desired to have a seat at the table there. So I think you're right. When you talk about analytics, it's more than just the sizzle and the splash of, posting a lot of memes that get attention, but it's truly how did we raise awareness? How did we impact the audience? How did we engage the audience to take some sort of action, whether that's advocacy for your organization, voting for your political issue or candidate, or making a donation or choosing to purchase from your organization.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about the fact that all of those numbers need to back up the organization's objectives. Because if your organization this year is focused in on volunteer hours and increasing the number of volunteers and the hours they're spending, but you're focused in on building brand awareness or community partnerships, they may not be in alignment, right? So what is it that we're really trying to measure and how?
Yeah. what really matters ultimately to, I think, candidly, the audience first, and then, the leadership of the organization second. So, the way you keep an engaged audience is you keep it about what's interesting to them in order to keep them engaged. And that's the long-term strategy, the long-term vision. And I think it's so important that if you're a leader listening to this and you're not sure what your social media team is doing, one, I'm pretty sure they're doing more than you recognize and appreciate. And two, that it is a long game, and you shouldn't look at, short-term wins as the only way to judge the success of your program.
Oh, 100%. If we could get rid of the term or question, can you make this go viral? That would be like the best accomplishment. I would just retire and be done.
Well, my favorite response to that is always, well, when you say viral, what does that mean to you, right?
That is a good response, yeah.
Because that could mean a lot of things, and especially when you're dealing with maybe somebody who has very limited number of followers or audience that they've earned so far, and they're like, oh, we want to go viral, and I'm like, so does that mean all 300 of your followers saw it? No, I'm just joking. It's not 300, but I'm kind of like, what does viral mean to you? And my favorite is when it's like, a B2B company that's so niche or whatever it might be that it's like, well, what's viral going to do for you ultimately if you're, only trying to attract a very narrow audience.
Exactly.
So you've got a job study that I'm curious to hear more about. And just at a high level, kind of what is the job study, and how does it benefit our audience?
Yeah, so the job study is something we do every couple of years, and our main purpose for doing it is to make sure that the certifications that we offer are on track. Like, we're measuring the right things, we're educating people in the right areas, and we're focused on the changes that are happening within social media strategy, social media marketing, or online marketing. And so the job study is something we do fairly routinely. The last one that we did earlier this year had over 1,400 respondents. And it really gives us a lot of insight into what's going on in the industry. Where are people spending their time, not just on platforms, although that information is in there as well, but what are the tasks that they're doing every day? And what are they expected to know? Is it something they're doing themselves, or are they managing a team that's doing them? Are they perhaps working with an agency or another organization? So it really kind of outlines for us some of the trends that are happening in this space. We also get some really good data around how the industry certifications are helping people, because that's how we listen to our audience, right? So, for example, in this last study, we found out that 54% of those who are certified received a raise as a result of getting their certification. 56% received a promotion. We have some numbers around confidence and getting a new job if they were within job transition. So it just really kind of helps us make sure that we are offering support to the industry in a really great way. For folks listening, it can be really insightful for not only those working in the space who are going to go, I feel seen. Right? Like, this is exactly what I'm doing all the time. These are the things that I struggle with. These are the opportunities that are here for me. But leadership to look at it and go, wow, okay, I didn't realize that my team of one was expected to know and do all of this. Maybe the next time they ask for some help within a consultant to come in for a few hours, or to outsource a project for design, for example, they might be a little bit more inclined to understand why that's being requested and how they can support that team.
Well, as two leaders in our own organizations, I'd like to spend a little time talking about that for just a minute. So, early in my career, I earned, accreditation in public relations, and, they kind of said the same thing, like this percentage of people end up getting, a raise or, a promotion or whatever. But I always sense that, like, you almost have to set the table for the person to understand that, just because you went and earned a certification doesn't mean that suddenly the company was holding on to money they weren't giving you before, right? So, is it more of the outcome of the of the advanced knowledge and education and maybe even the strategic view that person brings back to the organization?
I think that's a great question. I would guess it's more twofold. So one is the increased experience, education, knowledge that they now get to bring into the room. Mm-hmm. But we also try to focus on helping people educate their leadership about what they know.
Good.
So even if they came with that knowledge before they got the certification, now they can communicate that more effectively. They can share that in a way that makes the leadership understand that they're paying for a higher skill set than what they would if they were hiring off the resume board today.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I've got another question for you about that, but it's time for us to take a quick break and come back on the other side with more with Jennifer Radke.
You're listening to On Top of PR with your host, Jason Mudd. Jason is a trusted advisor to some of America's most admired and fastest growing brands. He is the managing partner at Axia Public Relations, a PR agency that guides news, social, and web strategies for national companies. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to On Top of PR. We're with Jennifer Radke talking about navigating professional growth in social media. And Jennifer, I was just about to ask you an additional question about the benefits of getting the certification for the employer. And so you had kind of answered my question a little bit preemptively, which was, you had mentioned that that you help educate the social media professional on how to articulate to leadership and educate leadership on per se all that they do. And so, because that's what I was going to ask is, how does that happen? Because the attention span oftentimes of leadership is, pretty quick. And so the example I used earlier, I think the accreditation board sent a letter to my boss saying I had earned this thing, and we're trying to puff up and promote how valuable it was, which I think it was extremely valuable. But the 2 seconds my boss sent on it, he literally just wrote congratulations and put it back on my desk, and that was the end of the conversation, right? So I had to be the one to bring it up to him and advocate and kind of explain what all I learned and how the organization would ultimately benefit from that. So to that end, help me, let's talk a little bit more about some of the highlights perhaps of, because obviously we want to encourage the audience who is interested in pursuing this. So what would be some of the things they could do to both bring attention to the value they bring the organization, as well as educating the organizations on the importance of social media and their role as a professional guiding the organization?
I think that's a fantastic question. There's a lot of different opportunities, and depending on your role and your organization, some of these may be easily done and some of these might be a little harder. But it's one thing to tell somebody, hey, I received this certification and this is what it means. It's another to show them and remind them. So one of the things that we focus a lot on is continuing education. So wonderful, you earned your credential. How are you going to stay current? This stuff changes so quickly, right? And so you have to do that through continuing education. So when you're meeting with your supervisor, it might be your annual review where you try to put some things in your goals for the year that are around supporting that certification and your continued development. But it also might just be team meetings or bringing in something that you've learned more recently to share with others and educate people. Because when you're educating your team, your boss is also paying attention to, wait, what is it that Jason knows about? And where did he get that again? Right? So we're just constantly or consistently being top of mind and showing that we know what we're talking about. Here's why. We're studying these things on a fairly frequent basis. We have resources we can provide the team so we can all speak the same language. And that way you're building up that credibility, you're building up that experience, that knowledge base, that thought leadership piece that your employer is looking for.
Well, Jennifer, now would be a good opportunity for you to tell us a little bit more about the organization as well as the certification options that you offer. Mm-hmm. And while we're at it, a special offer that you have today for our audience.
Sure. So the National Institute for Social Media has been around for about 12 years now. They focus on a social media strategist certification, so the SMS. It covers 6 main areas of strategy. So it is platform agnostic. We're not really focused in on, how do you put an ad on Twitter? But more importantly, who's your audience? Strategic planning. How do we align that all with goals? How do we stay compliant and use the governing forces that are in this space? How do we implement marketing communication strategy, both internal, external, where we're creating our content and engaging with people? How do we handle project or campaign management, outsourcing, vendors, things like that? Online community management, which is going to come in with both engaging the audience you do have as well as crisis. And then last, but certainly not least, I'd say it's woven in all of the 5 that I just mentioned, is research and analysis. How are we using data to back up those points? So we have got a variety of ways for people to prepare for that, whether it be just getting a textbook and a practice exam or going through a full 6-week instructor-led course. So there's lots of different opportunities based on where people are coming from. As you mentioned earlier, we also acquired a second certification body called OMCP, or Online Marketing Certified Professionals. We brought them into the family about 1.5 years ago, and they focus up more on some of the digital strategies. So things like search engine optimization, digital analytics, pay-per-click advertising, conversion rate optimization, email, mobile, and then they have some content and social in there as well. And there's 2 levels there. There's an associate level, which is more entry level, and then a professional level, which allows you to really hone in on 2 areas of specialty. So really to be able to say, I know this broad base of information, but I also have these 2 areas. Maybe it's pay-per-click and search engine optimization, for example, that I really am an expert on. So we've got those different certification options. We also have some assessment-based certificates. So there's a lot of things that people can learn. We offer free webinars a couple times a month in conjunction with that passion to really do continuing education. And then the offer that we have right now is you can get 1 of 6 of our core textbooks, ebooks, at no charge, just by listening and grabbing the code. So we hope that people can go out and get some great valuable information in a content domain area that's interesting to them.
Nice. Awesome. So one of the 6 books you offer using the promo code or coupon code perhaps of On Top of PR, and it appears that needs to be in all caps. Is that case sensitive?
I don't think it's case sensitive. And if it is, it's all lowercase actually.
Okay. So it's all one word. And we'll put that in the episode notes. I'd also like to put in our episode notes a link to the monthly webinar because I think that could be valuable as well. Jennifer, is it full-time employees who are the best audience for this type of continuing education programs? Or do you think it's also for those that aspire to be content creators and maybe make a living doing that on their own? Or and what about the CEOs of corporations who want to increase their visibility on social media platforms? Like, who's the ideal audience for these programs?
Yeah, so our core audience right now is a marketing professional with between 3 and 10 years of experience. They're utilizing social on a daily basis to really get their message out there for their brands. But we are seeing a lot of, so that's about 55, 60% of our current audience. Mm-hmm. We are seeing maybe 20, 25% of those, I want to be a content creator, or I've built up a personal brand and I want to figure out how to better monetize this and bring this into clients. And then we do have kind of another 20 or so percent that is of that CMO or CEO level, mm-hmm. who really just wants to understand how to speak more intelligently with their marketing team. Right. And so it's got that huge variety. In that big mix in the middle, it's really split 3 ways between the freelancers doing this for a variety of companies on a contract basis to agency staff. So they're working in that agency environment, but doing it for other clients. And then the corporate folks who are part of a corporate marketing team. Okay,
awesome. I don't know if we talked about this, but are you comfortable giving kind of the required investment range to get started in these programs?
Absolutely. So the certification exam itself on the OMCP side is either $225 or $395, depending on which exam you take. Mm-hmm. The social media strategist at NISM is $395. If you want to prepare for it, they include the exams in each of our package. So the lowest one starts at $499, and that's so the exam, a textbook, and a practice exam, up to $1495, which is a full 6-week online curriculum, 6 hours of one-on-one time with an educator, or our cohort model, which is with a group of students over a 6-week period. And all of the tools that go with it, the textbook, the practice exams, a study manual, things like that.
So clearly something that is a scalable and an affordable investment in either yourself or your talent that you have in the organization. And yes, I like that. So would this also be, again, we started the program off talking about how, you've seen a lot of the people who've completed this process enjoy, financial or even just status increase in the organization, either by raise and or promotion. Mm-hmm. Would you set the table to kind of just set the expectations of that, this helps people kind of take a more strategic view of what they're doing and also help position them to be more of a trusted advisor within the organization? Is that kind of some of the outcomes you can expect to see by completing this process?
Absolutely. People are feeling more confident in what they know. Most folks in this space learned as they went, right? They maybe had a traditional marketing background or studied marketing in college, but very little of it was more than history of social. Mm-hmm. So they're feeling like what they know might be under that whole imposter syndrome piece, right? So the certification steps in and says, hey, I actually know what I'm talking about here. I feel more confident in sharing that with my peers. I am seen as an expert from my peers now in a way that I wasn't before, which allows me to chat more at that table and to provide insights at the table. So it really does help in that way as well. Sure.
In your study, and I apologize if you might have mentioned this among the things we talked about, but in your study, are you finding, any data points about either imposter syndrome and or burnout in the social media role?
So imposter syndrome, we get very anecdotally. People talk about how the certification has given them more confidence and allows them to feel more credible as they're talking with either clients or leadership. But burnout is a real thing. So we are seeing, and the data in the study has actually shown us that people are leaving the industry right now when we shouldn't be seeing that. With an industry that's about 15 to 20 years old, we should see a larger group of people today in the space than we did 3 years ago that have that 10 plus years of experience. Mm-hmm. We don't. They're stepping away from the industry. They're stepping away from social media. And most of that is because of burnout, might be because of the 24/7 on pressure that they're experiencing, or it might be because of lack of support. They don't feel heard by their leadership when they need to take a break. There's a lot of folks in our community who we've brought in to help really support folks through the mental health capacities that are affected in working in social all the time.
Right.
And our leadership just hasn't caught up with that, right? I mean, we're as a country, our mental health epidemic is hugely problematic anyways. Yes. But when you throw in a always on digital environment where you can't always unplug because it is your job, you need your leadership to be there and support that unplugging, or to come and bring somebody else in when you're on vacation so you can really step away. And we're not seeing that happen as well as we need to. And so those are some of the reasons that we're getting for people leaving the space.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And we see that even at our own agency, and certainly on the client side as well. When the clients have social media teams, there's very high turnover there. We find that, people want to be on our social media team, generally speaking, either right out of college or something like that. They get on the team. And I think, to me, my observation is that they are unaware of the fact of the amount of work that this takes. So they enjoy doing social media as a hobby, and they, went to college and they got a degree in communication, public relations, whatever it might be. They might have even gotten a social media certification of some sort from the college or university, or a class or two there. And they thought, wow, this is really cool. I'd like to be involved. But unlike their personal social media account, which is very casual and sociable, you have to be professional yet interesting enough and engaging enough. You also have to be free of, typos and grammar and all that kind of stuff, while still being conversational. And so I sense that dawns on them that this is a real work and a difficult profession, right? And so it's not the fun that they thought it would be. And I also think that sometimes, I think especially young professionals, they feel like they're going to be the personality or the influencer of the channel, and I don't think they were expecting that either, kind of thing. And so, are you seeing that in some of your research as well, or what, and what kind of advice would you give to somebody who, might be feeling that burnout and maybe, and then it's amplified by the imposter syndrome of, I'm asking for help and no one's listening because they think I've got this, fun, cool, easy job?
Yeah. So I'm going to start with that latter point of people who are in the space feeling unsupported. There are people here that get it. The community at the National Institute for Social Media, for one. So find a community, whether it be ours or something more in your space, right? That you can collaborate with, commiserate with, and just share resources. It is important to be surrounded by people who understand what you do. And yes, we ideally want to help get the leadership on team or on board and to understand what you and your team are doing and how stressful that might be, but one step at a time. So right now, make sure you're covering yourself by surrounding yourself with a good community. For those folks that are entering the space, I just did a session this morning with a college group, and I said, you know what? I know you probably don't want to hear this as juniors and seniors getting ready to finish your 4-year bachelor's degree, but you're not done when you graduate, especially in business or marketing. You have to stay current. Things are changing so quickly. I mean, we kind of mentioned AI early on, right? It is expanding and changing in exponential ways daily that we just can't even fathom or understand. And so the jobs that they think they're preparing themselves for are going to look different by the time they graduate. And so let's be open to figuring out what it is we really like and how we contribute into an organization that way. I spent a lot of time at a recent conference helping a few content creators understand that just because their personal brand has millions of followers and they're able to make people laugh or engage doesn't mean that they can go out and become the face of a healthcare brand and be successful, for example.
Right.
We really need to understand, how do we play in? What is our circle of influence? And how do we use that, right, to better move things forward? A personal brand, like you said, and a business brand are two very different things. And one of the examples I like to give is in the healthcare space. I mean, we just went through a global pandemic a few years ago. If you stop for a second and remember how terrified you or your family members or your neighborhood or your kids were, and then you think about that person on your social who's consistently yelling at people and or brands about, what they didn't do right, put that in the perspective of being the person answering that for a healthcare system in the middle of a global pandemic.
Right.
Oh my goodness, were they beat up beyond belief? Or higher education, as colleges and universities who charge a lot of money for the education they provide could no longer send the students to a physical classroom. They had to take it from their dorm room or stay it away, right? And do it all online.
Yeah.
Man, people attacked those institutional brands and didn't think for a second that there was a human behind it who, one, didn't make those decisions for them, but two, was responsible to try to educate and empathize and sympathize and relate and share the concerns that you have as a person have. That'll give you some insight into what it is like to work in this space.
Right.
And if you can't do that, if you can't adjust, and if you can't put yourself into the shoes of someone else, then there might be a different path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That's very good. And just switching back to imposter syndrome for a moment, I'm going to have Holly add to our episode notes a link to a past podcast where we talked about imposter syndrome for a whole episode and brought in an author and speaker about that topic named Chris. And then in addition, we'll put in the episode notes a link to the accreditation and public relations that I mentioned earlier for people who aren't aware of that program. And then lastly, of course, a link to the promo code for an offer for a free book from your organization as well. So, Jennifer, if somebody wants to reach out to you and continue the conversation with you, is LinkedIn the best way for them to find you?
LinkedIn really is. You can find me as Jennifer Radke there. I show up. If you Google me, you can probably find me other places as well. So I welcome any connections.
Wonderful. All right. Well, Jennifer, I thought this was a great episode. Thank you for spending time and investing your time in helping our audience stay on top of PR and learning more about social media and the opportunity to continue their education there. And I would encourage anyone who's listening as a leader, as well as somebody who is maybe a professional or a tactician that might want to explore, how can I invest in my career and in my organization or invest in my people, to look at this and other certification programs, because I know our organization, we benefit from that. And we're, improvement is one of our core values, which is kind of code for professional development. And so we're constantly trying to make sure our people are doing something on a quarterly basis to advance themselves and advance the profession that they're in as well. So, Jennifer, I think this is a very timely topic. I appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jason. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, mine as well. Thank you. So with that, this has been another episode of On Top of PR. Thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for your loyalty as an audience member. And if you found value in this presentation today, I hope you'll take a minute to either share it with a colleague who you think would benefit from it, or take a minute to leave us an online review in the platform of your choice where you consume this content. And with that, this is Jason Mudd signing off from On Top of PR. Be well.
This has been On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, presented by ReviewMaxer. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and check out past shows at ontopofpr.com.